46 years of age? No, you did not. What you sat up there and said is, we got a bad brother in our stable. This brother's something special. Look at what he does for us. He contributes to wins, not losses. We look at him and we have defined what his value is. We look at him and we say to ourselves, damn, this brother is special. And with the Phillies just getting Bryce Harper, with Bryce Harper unapologetic in his pursuit of Mike Trout, to the point that the Angels felt compelled to pick up the phone and call Major League Baseball's offices to talk about the Phillies and Bryce Harper commenting about Mike Trout. What did they do? They turned around and they said, you know what? The fact that we've only made the postseason once since 2010, that means once in the last 9 years. That damn sure wasn't because of him. This brother is special. Here's the first $400 million player in Major League Baseball history. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. It's what America is all about. It's what sports in America is supposed to be all about. You see stars in Europe, from David Beckham on down, getting taken care of. Lifetime deals or long deals or whatever. And I'm not one that's been down with those 10-year deals. I don't particularly like them. I really, really don't. I personally think, and I still hold true to my statement, that no player should be allowed to sign a deal more than 6 years. But my Lord, if ever there was an exception, if ever there was an individual that you take the rule book and you throw it in the river, if ever there was an individual to look at and to place your faith in and to say, excuse me, we believe in you, it is Mike Trout. This brother is absolutely, positively electrifying in every way imaginable. He can hit for power. He can hit for bases. He can run the bases. He can steal. He's improved his arm strength as an outfielder. He covers a lot of ground out there in center field. He never looks out of shape and unready. He's not an elite player. He's the elite player in all of baseball. His bat speed is there. His power is there. His skill sets haven't diminished. And again, wins above replacement, he's number one in history at his age. Number one, ahead of Ty Cobb, ahead of Mickey Mantle, and 10 games above anybody else playing the sport today. The fact that a team, even though the Angels do have a $3 billion television deal, even though they do have that, here's the facts. They couldn't lose him. They couldn't lose him. They're the Los Angeles Angels. I still call them the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. It's where they play. But the fact that they wouldn't lose him says a lot. It really, really does. And it's something all of us should aspire to achieve. I don't give a damn if you're a construction worker. You're a lawyer or a doctor. You're somebody working on Wall Street. You're an accountant. Hell, you're a sports reporter or a sports commentator. When you are great and you have established your greatness and you have shown no signs that that greatness is going to dissipate in terms of your impact to the bottom line. Because, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now, particularly to your young whippersnappers out there, breath smelling like Similac, wet behind the ears, don't know a damn thing, think you know everything. Let me give you some pieces of advice. When you get up in the morning and you'll go to work every day and you aspire for greatness and to be rewarded for that greatness, You have to have some tangible piece of evidence validating your value. You have to be able to say, this is what I contribute to the bottom line of the people I have my hand out for monetary compensation. When you can do that, you're on to something. When you can't do it, you just run in your mouth. You don't understand business, period. Not just the business you're in, business, period. To have value, you have to validate yourself as a valuable individual to those who define value. Otherwise, you're nothing. You're nothing. And I don't give a damn what business you look at, what walk of life you're in. We don't have enough people preaching the importance of that. When I give speeches throughout this country, and I do often, I always tell people unapologetically, I wake up every morning from a business perspective with two things in mind. How do I make my bosses more money? And how do I get some of it? How do I get my bosses? How do I make my bosses more money? And how do I get some of it? When you do that, you're on a path towards success. When you don't do that, you're a pain, a nuisance. The equivalent of a person that comes to the boss with nothing to bring to the table but complaints. Never solutions. Because if you're thinking about winning, you'll always have solutions. Mike Trout is a solution. He ain't a problem. Angels haven't made it to the postseason but once in 9 years. It ain't Mike Trout's fault. He has nothing to do with that. He has absolutely, positively nothing to do with that. Mike Trout ain't the reason they haven't made the postseason since 2010. I can promise you that. Mike Trout's the only reason you really give him a chance. Albert Pujols signed for $240 million, but we know he ain't what he used to be. Mike Scioscia ain't forget how to manage, but there's so much you can pull out, and nobody's confusing him with Bruce Bochy, who's about to retire, because you've got 3 world championships on your docket. And I love Mike Scioscia. The reality is clear. When you look at Mike Trout, he's that great. And if you're Giancarlo Stanton for the New York Yankees, handle your business. I know this brother got $430 million. It doesn't mean Yankee fans are going to forget that you're in the midst of a $325 million contract. Even though you signed it with the Marlins, you a Yankee now. You a Yankee now. Now, I ain't saying you didn't show up. I'm saying show up even more. You Aaron Judge, your day's coming. You're going to get paid mad dollars. Show up. Show up. Gary Sanchez, with all the damn potential that you have, show up. Show up. These are the cornerstones of the Yankees franchise. I can't wait for Didi Gregorius to come back. I got that, but damn it, that ain't what I'm thinking about. Aaron Hicks, I appreciate the fact that you got your $70 million deal. You secured yourself and your family. You toiled through whatever you had to go through. You paid your dues. You got those guaranteed dollars. I personally think the Yankees got over because you should have got more. But I'm happy you're a Yankee. But the reality of the situation is when we look at the New York Yankees, we ain't think about them as much as we think about Stanton and Judge and Sanchez and Severino. Only reason we think about Sabathia is because he's about to retire, and we appreciate his years of service and the greatness that he's blessed us with from time to time. But we know who the cornerstones of this franchise is, or are. You look at Mike Trout, guess what? You'd give them all away for him. Am I lying, John? Am I lying? You'd give away the 3 of them. You'd give every fan that showed up to Yankee Stadium a bag of peanuts and some hot dogs and soda pop. You'd do whatever the hell anybody wanted you to do to get Mike Trout. If Mike Trout signed for $430 million and he was a member of the New York Yankees, people would be complaining all over the world. Them damn Yankees, they just buy everything. And we wouldn't give a damn. But he's staying in Anaheim. And that's fine. But let me tell you something. Even though he got his $430 million, you ain't forgetting the guy that got $325 wearing Yankee pinstripes. You're not forgetting the guy that might end up signing a $300 million deal down the road in Aaron Judge. You ain't forgetting about a guy, a catcher with so much potential that's underachieved in Gary Sanchez. You're the New York Yankees. You see Trout's contract. You know what? You should be on a mission to show one player can't beat a great team. Boston Red Sox, they doing it. They're the reigning defending champions. JD Martinez ain't no damn bad outfielder. Look where they at. Mookie Betts is no joke. He ain't no damn Mike Trout. But you don't need Mike Trout to win World Series. You do need Mike Trout to fill the seats for 81 games. We're going to see what happens. This is a good day. It's good that Anaheim kept Mike Trout because you can't lose a player of that magnitude. A guy that, by the way, had he fallen one other slot in the draft, the Yankees would have had him then. All I'm saying is, look at it for what it is. I'm happy for Mike Trout. I'm happy the Angels did it. I think it's good for sports. I think it's good for Major League Baseball. I think it's good for corporate America. It's the largest contract in professional sports history, even larger than the $365 million contract that Canelo Alvarez signed with the Zone, 30% higher than the $330 million contract that Bryce Harper signed with the Phillies. None of them still made more money or making more money than Floyd Money Mayweather, but that's a different story for another day. Meaning more money than he has made. But it is what it is. It's a good day. And it's a good day for all parties concerned because people are going to get paid in the future. And they're going to be recognized for their greatness in the future. But one player still does not make a team. The Yankees should be on a mission to remind everybody of that. And for those of you in New York that are upset that I didn't mention the Mets, please go sit down somewhere with Don Juan LaGreca. Mets ain't doing nothing this year. I don't believe in them. But we'll see. Their pitching is still studdish if everybody's healthy. You the Dodgers, you upset I ain't mentioned you. Well, maybe if you stop losing World Series, I'll start mentioning you again. You ain't won a World Series since 1988, and you in L.A. It's kind of pathetic. We shall see, y'all. We shall see. American League West, going to be interesting. Houston, Seattle. It's going to be interesting. Lots to talk about. I'll get into this. Take your calls on this. Plus talk about the NCAA tournament. Plus get into a little NBA action that transpired last night. And of course, Odell Beckham Jr., Eli Manning, and Dave Gettleman's blasphemous comments regarding both of them. So don't touch that dial. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage in America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. By the way, if you haven't tried the delicious high-quality meat from ButcherBox, you're going to be blown away. ButcherBox brings you the meat the way it's meant to be so you can get all of the benefits you're supposed to get. Unbelievable flavor and unparalleled nutrition. They work closely with the best farms and companies committed to raising animals humanely, from grass-fed beef to free-range organic chicken to wild-caught sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay, Alaska. ButcherBox has over 20 different cuts of meat to choose from, with customizable boxes and a variety of other options to choose from. And ButcherBox comes at an affordable price as well. With free shipping, you can get a month's worth of the best tasting meat from ButcherBox for less than $6 a meal. ButcherBox is offering my listeners free ground beef for the life of your subscription and $20 off your first box when you sign up at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Don't miss out on this special offer at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Butcherbox.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. Don't touch that dial. More Stephen A. in a minute.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people!
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
What we don't have the right to do is ignore a resume that's pretty damn close to impeccable in terms of his behavior and commitment to excellence. There's a lot of things. When my boy Champ calls up and he's critical of LeBron, the player, where you're on the court and you see certain things that you may not like about his game, there's nothing wrong with that. Even Champ could be a bit excessive, but there's still nothing wrong with it. When there's something wrong is when you ignore the way he takes care of his body, the way he's in peak condition, the way he's always ready to play, the way where he can walk out on the court and put in 35 minutes, 40 minutes without blinking. When you consider the level of physical excellence predicated off of physical commitment, not just to his craft, but to his conditioning, his body, and what have you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is some unparalleled stuff. Tell me somebody in the league who looks in better shape than LeBron James when LeBron James is healthy. We know the groin injury sidelined him Christmas Day and he wasn't the same. But who looks, other than Russell Westbrook maybe, and even that's debatable, the fact of the matter is when you look at LeBron, LeBron shows up every year ready to go. To sit up there and treat him like he doesn't care, see, that's where we're crossing the line. We really, really are crossing the line. We're reaching. And we're allowing headlines about him preceding his arrival to manipulate our coverage of him once he arrives. With all due respect to Walt Clyde Frazier, you don't even have a license to criticize the Knicks. You can't criticize your own team, but you can criticize LeBron. Like that? LeBron deserves criticism sometimes, mind you. Wanting to control the narrative and all that other stuff, but he didn't deserve that.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Jeff Passan, Major League Baseball insider for ESPN, formerly of Yahoo. He will be on the show with us to start off hour number 2. Thoroughly enjoyed talking to him a couple of weeks ago. Looking forward to talking to him about this mega contract that Mike Trout has agreed to stay with the Los Angeles Angels. 12 years, $430 million. 30% more, $100 million more than Bryce Harper, $130 million more than Manny Machado, $105 million more than Giancarlo Stanton. By the way, the Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. That's Credit Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Get knowing. There's no debate here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is nearly a $500 million deal. And you can't find a soul that'll tell you that Mike Trout don't deserve this contract. 26 years of age, under contract until he's 38. When you consider his numbers, what he brings to the table, there is simply no denying the greatness. Slice it any way you want to. There's no denying the greatness. It's something special to behold. It really, really is. Wins above replacement. This dude is 10 games above anybody else playing his position. 10 games. So his career at age 26 is at 64.3. That's better than Ty Cobb and Mickey Mantle. You go to the analytics side, which I really do. You look at outfielders. He's obviously rated number 1. This is above Mookie Betts, J.D. Martinez, Aaron Judge, Ronald Acuna Jr. from Atlanta. He's a bad boy. Yelich in Milwaukee. We know what kind of year he had last year. Harper, Stanton, Marte with Pittsburgh, Benintendi in Boston. Boston's got 3 guys in the top 10. Betts, Martinez, and Benintendi. I mean, Trout special, man. Absolutely, positively special. Great in the locker room. Never hear a teammate complain anything about him, which is more than could be said for the rest of us. I mean, that's what you got going on here. Slice it any way you want to. The fact remains that when you look at it, I think the Anaheim Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, keeping him, I think it's good for him. I think it's good for the team. I think it's good for baseball. I think it's good for sports. I think it's good for America. At some point in time, ladies and gentlemen, rather than trying to milk everything out of somebody that you can in an effort to devalue them and their contribution to you, the Anaheim Angels, that's what I like to call them, although they're the Los Angeles Angels. The Angels stepped up and said, we know he's got 2 years left on this deal. 6 years, $144.5 million. He's got 2 years to go. But Bryce Harper evidently got him paid. Because after hearing Bryce Harper speak, openly acknowledging he would recruit him, Angels didn't play around. Threw $430 million on the table. We ain't losing this, brother. It's actually special to see. It's well deserved. Jenny, Forrest Gump. Jenny, you're live with Stephen A. ESPN Radio. How are you?
I am fabulous. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. Always happy to hear from you. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just calling I'm very excited about this Mike Trout deal. I see a lot of people really talking very negatively about them being, the Angels and signing them, but I'm going to give you a comparison.
Okay.
No one knew 10 years ago who the Golden State Warriors were, let alone where they even played. And look at them now.
Yeah, but Jenny, the argument would be as pivotal as Steph Curry is to their success and more importantly, their marketability, because he is the Bay Area. Make no mistake about it. The flip side to it, Jenny, is that Steph Curry didn't do it alone. Klay Thompson making up the greatest shooting backcourt that we've ever seen. Last night notwithstanding, because neither of them were great last night against San Antonio. But Klay Thompson and Steph Curry making up the greatest shooting backcourt doesn't hurt. Draymond Green being all-purpose utility man for all of these years didn't hurt. Acquiring Kevin Durant ultimately didn't hurt. So when you look at the Golden State Warriors, the people that would make the argument against Mike Trout are looking at not at Mike Trout, but at the rest of the Angels, at the fact that they haven't made the postseason since 2010, and they've had Mike Trout for at least 7 complete years and a piece of the 8th year, but you only made the postseason once. They're like, one player in baseball ain't going to do that for you. What do you say to that?
I understand that. Look, we've got Shohei Ohtani coming to us. He looks like he's going to be quite a little shining star. We've got a great farm system going on. I think there's some hope. I mean, Pujols, come on, we know he needs to retire. He was great in his time. But I think we get a good closer, a couple more good starting pitchers.
That's a lot. That's a lot of ifs, Jenny. That's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of things. I mean, listen. You know what, Jenny? I'd like to look better. Why don't I go to Hair Club for Men and get an afro? Or better yet, try going bald to see how that works for me. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ifs. Why don't I get in the gym like my boy Jeff, who's 50 years old, walking around with an 8-pack? You understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to get 8-pack. How about that? I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we can look at, Jenny, and there's a lot of things that we can do. But the more ifs you have, the more questions you have, the more it justifies the argument against it. I'm simply saying, when you have somebody as great as Mike Trout, you don't question it. You roll with it.
Absolutely.
That's my thing.
I'm just giving love up to the Angels. I've been going to their games since the early 80s.
Well, Jenny, I must admit, you give a lot of love. Every time you call up, you giving love to somebody. That's just in your spirit. That's a part of your spirit. That's a part of your spirit. You know that, Jenny. I appreciate the call up. Thank you so much. Let's go to Danny. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Danny?
Stephen A.
How are you?
All right, sir. I want to tell you, you do not a good job, Stephen A. You do a great job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
You
Thank
are
you so much.
a professional. You are a trendsetter. You are a pioneer, and you are a professional, sir, in the sports journalism field that you are called and gifted in, Stephen A.
Thank you, sir. I'm not flawless, but I'll take everything else you said.
You do an A1 job for ESPN, Stephen A.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Go ahead, buddy. What's your point?
Sir, I want to tell you, you are spot on and right on about Mike Trout. When you got a man, a two-time MVP in the American League like Mike Trout is, the Angels would be fools not to pay him what he is deservingly, sir, deserves. Just like in your field, you deserve every nickel, dime, quarter, penny, dollar that you deserve, and then some, and so does Mike Trout.
The man is 26 years old, has been an American League MVP twice, has been a runner-up at least 2 or 3 more times. One of the years he wasn't in the top 3 was because he missed about 50 games. That was the only reason. Steals bases, smacks home runs, RBIs. And now he's playing well in center field with a strong arm. Exactly. You can't make this up.
That's right. Albert Pujols is in the twilight of his career, a Hall of Famer, no less. And the Angels have to keep him. And what you're saying, sir, is right as rainwater.
And I'll tell you something else, too, I want to add. If I'm looking at other guys, like, for example, Mike Trout is getting $430 million. You can make an argument that's a better deal than the $330 million the Phillies gave Bryce Harper. Than $300 million San Diego gave Manny Machado. You can make an argument about that. The only way you can compete in terms of saying that Bryce Harper may have been a better deal is because I believe that Bryce Harper will have more of a box office impact in Philly than Trout has in Anaheim, because the rabid fan base just appears to be more prevalent, or evident rather, in Philadelphia than it is in a laid-back sunshine of Anaheim, beautiful Anaheim, California. But having said all of that, what I like about this, Danny, is that I like the idea of this applying pressure to guys already getting paid too. Because we know Trout's going to perform. What y'all going to do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do, Stanton? What you gonna do, Stanton? What you gonna do, Bryce? Bryce batted .214 before the All-Star game last year. He was horrid the first half of the season. Came on strong, batted .300 second half of the season. But he was horrid the first half. What y'all gonna do? Jacob deGrom, you with the Mets. You want to get paid. You don't want to negotiate come season time. What you gonna do? He's great. What you gonna do? Clayton Kershaw, postseason. What you gonna do? Greinke, you average about $34 million a year with the contract that Arizona gave you. What you gonna do? Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, all of these cats looking for their money down the line. What you gonna do? Because we know what Trout's gonna do. And that's what I like about this, Danny. That's
right. And you know the fan base in Philadelphia because you used to work in Philadelphia. You know
17
Philadelphia
years.
like the back of your hand.
17 years. Yes, sir. I do. Danny, I got to go. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the kind words. They're very, very much appreciated. You take care of yourself. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back to your calls and more before Jeff Passett, MLB Insider Extraordinaire, comes on with us at the top of hour number 2 to talk about this contract and talk about the sports landscape and the money being thrown out there. If anybody would know, he'd know. And we'll talk to him about that right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, college basketball season is winding down, and that means we must turn our attention to the Wendy's Wooden Watch. John R. Wooden Men's Player of the Year Award, presented by Wendy's, is the most prestigious individual honor in college basketball, awarded to the country's most outstanding player who's also making progress towards earning a degree. Go to ESPN.com and search Wooden Watch for the list of players on the Wooden Award 2018-2019 Men's National Ballot. Brought to you by Wendy's, proud sponsor of the 2019 John R. Wooden Player of the Year Award. Now tell them, did you know that our show can now be streamed on demand on the ESPN app? Better bring your A game.
I always bring my A game. Download the ESPN app and tap on the Watch tab to watch whenever, wherever you want.
Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
The Heineken River Deck at Pier 17, South Street Seaport. Plus, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Insure your boat, motorcycle, or RV at progressive.com. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Hour number 2, Jeff Passan, our Major League Baseball insider, will be on with us to talk about Mike Trout and various other things going on in the world of Major League Baseball. I'll get into a couple of NBA items. Plus, wait till you hear the conditions under which Robert Kraft, owner for the New England Patriots, can have everything dropped and these charges against him to go away. According to Pro Football Talk. Just wait until you hear this stuff. Wait till I read this stuff to you. It's ridiculous. But all of that is definitely something we'll get into. Luke, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Luke, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Stephen A.
You're here. You only got a minute. Go ahead.
All right. So I normally don't like these big long-term deals, 10, 12 years. I think Trout's one of the few guys. I think this deal makes a lot more sense than the Bryce Harper deal because he's shown that he's worth it. My question is what's going to happen now? What's their plan going forward? Are they going to bring other big-name guys in? What's their farm system look like?
Well, that's the question, and I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Next time, sound like you're not just waking up. But I will say this to you. We'll see what they do with their farm system. I don't think you need another big name. I think you just need to build your roster. You've got the box office attraction. You've got the guy. Now that you've got him in play, I think where you go from there is simply building your roster, paying attention to the landscape, the opposition that you face, and going from there. We'll see what happens. But we'll talk to Jeff Passan about that to start off hour number 2 up next.
The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
To hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show, here with you over the airways of ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Plus Sirius XM Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. That's Credit Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Get knowing. Plus, need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. On the line with us right now, as promised, is Major League Baseball insider extraordinaire. The one and only Jeff Passan is on the line with us right now. What's going on, Jeff? Good afternoon. Good morning. How are you?
Stephen A., I'm well, my friend. How about yourself?
Your initial and immediate reaction upon learning that Mike Trout was about to ink a 12-year, $430 million deal where the final 2 years of his contract were being ripped up so he could have this deal in front of him. Your thoughts?
Good Lord, that's a lot of money. And it's understandable too. Like I believe when Manny Machado signed or when Bryce Harper signed, I don't remember which one it was, but you said, I believe on this program, might have been on First Take, I'm not positive, but if that guy is worth that much, how much is Mike Trout worth? And we now have the answer to that. He's worth more than any athlete in the history of sports, more than Canelo Alvarez getting $365 million, more than Bryce Harper getting $330 million. It is a monumental extension, and you know what? The guy deserves it because he's the best player in baseball.
Well, for those that may not comprehend it, quantify for us in any way that you possibly can why he's worth $100 million more than Bryce Harper, $105 million more than Giancarlo Stanton, $130 million more than Manny Machado. The list goes on and on. Why?
It's just a matter of production. And look, we can nerd out a little here and talk about wins above replacement, and it's a new stat, and it's a stat that tries to quantify exactly how productive a particular player has been. Mm-hmm. And through his age 26 season, Mike Trout has piled up more wins above replacement than any player in the history of baseball, more than Babe Ruth, more than Ty Cobb, more than Mickey Mantle, more than anybody. And because of that, and because they wanted to keep him in their uniform for the remainder of his career, the Los Angeles Angels understood that in order to get Mike Trout not to hit free agency after the 2020 season, they needed to step up financially. And that's exactly what they did. They tacked on 10 years to his current deal. It's going to be about $365 million or so in new money. And you know what? For a guy who produces like Mike Trout does, Stephen A., 365 for 10 years is not bad. And it's a crazy thing to say. I understand how ridiculous that sounds, but when you look at where baseball salaries are at right now, Bryce Harper getting $330 for 13, Manny Machado getting $300 for 10, Trout getting $365 for 10, it's actually a pretty team-friendly deal.
If Bryce Harper hadn't opened his mouth and been so open about pursuing Mike Trout the second he became a free agent in 2 years, are we at this point right now, or is this something that probably happens a year from now, or whatever the case may be?
You know, I think that probably showed the Los Angeles Angels, hey, the quicker we can get this done, the better. But they went into this offseason even before Bryce Harper signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, knowing that locking him up right now was going to be the best thing for their team long term. And look, they've dabbled in these long-term contracts in the past, and they have not turned out well. The $365 million that they're adding to Trout's deal, that's exactly what they spent on Albert Pujols and Josh Hamilton. And Pujols is, you know, he looks like a shell of his former self. And Hamilton's deal is one of the worst in baseball history for a club. So Artie Moreno has been here in the past, and it has not turned out well. You can talk about C.J. Wilson. You can talk about Gary Matthews Jr. Like, the Angels' history with long-term deals is not fruitful, but they see Mike Trout as a completely different breed, and I can understand why. If you're going to build around anyone in baseball today, he is the guy you build around. And when you have Shohei Ohtani and you have Joe Adell, who's a 19-year-old, he's going to start in Double-A this year. He'll be with the Angels at this point next year. That is one whale of an outfield to put out there on a daily basis. Question is, can they get pitching? And if the Angels get any pitching anytime soon, whether it's internally or via free agency, they're going to be a contender in the American League West. And look, that's important because Mike Trout has played in 3 playoff games in his 8-year career and has lost all 3 of them.
When he got swept by the Kansas City Royals in 2014. I know exactly what you're talking about. We're talking to Jeff Paston, MLB Insider, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. For those that may not know, may not comprehend just the financials of Major League Baseball, of a Major League Baseball team, how do you pay a Mike Trout $430 million? I'm thinking it's 162 games. 81 of them are at home. They've got a $3 billion television deal, if I remember correctly. But could you break down for us why these numbers are not going to blow the Angels away and inhibit their ability to build a team around this superstar?
Major League Baseball, Stephen A., is a $10 billion+ a year industry in terms of revenue. There is no lack of cash in the game right now.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the league. You're talking about the league, but not an individual team, right?
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
go ahead.
But the $3 billion figure you had for 20 years of television is correct. And as opposed to the NFL, which has all of the teams under its auspices and negotiates contracts that way, each individual major league team negotiates its deals, and the Angels have one of the biggest television contracts out there. So financially, they're not going to have any problems doing this. They have that money. It's locked in. It's in the bank, and they're going to be just fine paying him that. And look, they're going to be able to go out and make some other moves too. They don't have a lot of long-term deals on the books at this point, so they can build around Mike Trout and give him the type of team that he deserves.
Jeff Passan right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. You don't hear too many negatives about Mike Trout because really there's none to find. But guess what, Jeff? I may have found one. Are you ready for this?
Let's hear it.
His voice. He doesn't talk too much. He doesn't talk too much, Jeff. He doesn't talk too much. Now, we heard Bryce Harper go out there and talk. Not only did he sign, but he talked about recruiting. Man, Bryce Harper tried to recruit Le'Veon Bell to the Philadelphia Eagles of the National Football League. That's not what Mike Trout does. So his voice could potentially be a problem because he's going to play. He's going to perform. But what about Mike Trout, the recruiter? Did I make a case there?
No, not really.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Mike Trout also would have recruited Le'Veon Bell to the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's right.
Mike Trout is a huge Eagles fan.
Yes, he
He's
is.
a bigger Eagles fan than Bryce Harper ever will be.
That is true.
I think that Mike Trout does not need to say a word to recruit. I think the depth of his talent and the exquisite way that he plays baseball is all anybody in the game needs to know. And he could go out there and stump publicly, but it would just be eyewash, man. And I'm not saying that what Bryce Harper's doing is eyewash. That's Harper's personality. That's his style. You know, going out there and publicly stumping is not Mike Trout's style. He has always been a very laid-back guy. You know, I mean, even last year, I think it was, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, said maybe Mike Trout would be a bigger star if he put himself out there more. And you know what? That's true. Like, there was nothing false about what Rob Manfred said there, but that's just not who Mike Trout is. He's a guy who doesn't seek the spotlight. And it's hard, for me at least, to fault him for that, because anybody who is genuine to him or herself, I have respect for. And Mike Trout has always been a very genuine person.
I totally agree with you, and I feel the exact same way about him. But what I would say, playing the role of devil's advocate, is that these guys don't just play baseball. They're trying to uplift the sport. Somebody like an Alex Rodriguez just spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. When Jessica Mendoza spoke about that as well. You're talking about Major League Baseball, and I'll go a little bit philosophical with you here, Jeff. It's one of those situations where you look at the NFL and how they're in the mind's eye in terms of how they go about the business of ingratiating themselves with a younger audience. The NBA clearly has done that. In the sport of Major League Baseball, where the average fan is like from 47 to 54 for crying out loud, you do have people who are concerned about the future of baseball because of that reality. Do you not believe there should be some onus placed on today's player to help promote the sport in such a way that could help them ingratiate themselves with a younger up-and-coming audience?
That is the most salient argument possible for Mike Trout to become more involved publicly. Not what his present is, but what the sport's future is. And I think that is a reasonable thing for baseball to ask, to want, to desire. And I think it's equally reasonable for Mike Trout to say, no, that's not my style. But yes, in an ideal world, absolutely. You would like the guy who's better than anyone in the game right now and who has a chance, when it's all said and done, to be better than anyone in the history of the game, to be out there promoting the sport. And you know what? He promotes the sport through the way he plays it. But you would love it, if you're baseball, for him to promote the sport through the way he plays it and through the words that come out of his mouth.
No question about it. We're talking to Jeff Passan right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Having said all of that, 8 times in the last 9 seasons, the Angels have made the postseason. They've missed the postseason. They've only made it once, and they haven't won one single playoff game in Mike Trout's career. Now, obviously, baseball is pretty much an individual sport. You could be as great as you want to be, for example, as a fielder, a hitter. But if you don't get any pitching, what does it matter? We understand that. The flip side to it, though, is couldn't that be justification in some people's eyes for looking at a contract like this and saying he may deserve it, every penny, but what purpose will it serve the Angels who've missed the postseason each of the last 4 years and has finished below 500 each of the last 3 years? What purpose does it serve? How do you answer that question, Jeff?
I think the counter argument to that is, what do the Angels look like without Mike Trout? They're a much, much worse team. And if the organization is making these goo-gobs of money that it is, that money needs to be spent somewhere. And if I am them, I would rather spend it on a guy who I drafted 25th overall, who is on my major league roster as a 19-year-old, who has done nothing but perform on the field and be a good citizen in the community and good representative of the organization, rather than going out and spending it elsewhere. The money needs to go somewhere, Stephen A. Mm-hmm. And just because Mike Trout has not been a star in October doesn't mean that you have to hold him personally responsible for it. You know, one man can only do so much, and he's done about as much as humanly possible by himself to uplift that organization and make it better. Now, because his teammates, because the other 24 guys around him have not performed at that level, can you hold him responsible? I personally have trouble doing that myself.
Jeff Passan, having said all of that, we look at other individuals. A Mike Socha, for example, entering his 19th season as the manager for this ball club. Does a contract like Mike Trout apply more pressure to somebody like him to turn things around, or else Moreno's going to move in a different direction?
Well, Socha is gone, actually. Brad Ausmus is the manager.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about that. I can't believe I forgot about that, because Mike Socha was one of my favorite guys.
Listen,
no problem.
There's a lot of shuffling going on during the offseason.
No problem. I was looking at the 88 and 82 record from last year. My bad. I'm totally fault on that one. Having said all of that, though, still in all, does it apply more pressure to Pujols? Does it apply more pressure to anybody else to step up and produce, considering the situation that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think it puts pressure on Matt Harvey, who's in on a one-year deal to fortify that rotation. It puts pressure on Trevor Cahill. You know, it puts pressure on Shohei Ohtani. He's trying to do something this year that nobody has ever done before, which is play while rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. He's not going to be pitching, but he's going to be the everyday designated hitter. He may potentially ultimately play a little bit of right field as well. And next year in 2020, he's going to be the beast unleashed. And if Shohei Ohtani can fulfill his potential on both sides of the baseball, and you have Mike Trout there, we're talking 2 of the 5 best players in baseball on the same team. It is incumbent on Billy Epler, the general manager there, and Artie Moreno to step up and fill around it. And they've got a really good farm system, Stephen A. So at this point, the Angels are in as good of a position as they've been since that 2014 season, where they were swept after winning 100 games. And frankly, since probably when they won the World Series nearly 2 decades ago now.
Jeff Passan right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. What about the pressure it puts on teams from opposing, on other teams? Bryce Harper, his $330 million. I just went into Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge. These guys are going to be looking for money down the road. Giancarlo Stanton already getting his money. What about the pressure it applies to them, knowing that a guy like Mike Trout signs for $430 million and nobody is blinking at it? Nobody's concerned about it whatsoever, because we're looking at it and we're saying, excuse me, we know what he can do. What are y'all going to do? What about that?
Yeah, Harper's got a ton of pressure because he wants to perform in Philadelphia and show that he was worth the $330 million. Giancarlo Stanton's got a ton of pressure because it's his second season with the Yankees now, and they have World Series aspirations, and he's still in the middle of a $325 million contract. To me, though, the guys to keep an eye on are Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, and Francisco Lindor. That is the next generation of guys who are looking at $300+ million contracts. And, when it's all said and done, Stephen A., those are the guys who are going to be in line to potentially break Mike Trout's record, which is crazy to think about, but a reality too, because there is a lot of money in baseball right now, and teams understand that as much as the market has cratered for those mid-tier players and those low to mid-tier guys, and they're just not getting paid what they used to, superstars still get cash.
Yeah, you say that, but look at what Mike Trout brings to the table in terms of his complete game. Is being a home run hitter going to be enough to get you that kind of money? Because when I think about Giancarlo Stanton, nobody's talking about his fielding. Nobody's talking about anything. Yeah. They expect him to smack home runs out of the park. Is that going to be enough to justify you getting the kind of money that he's getting right now? Is that going to be something that's enough for Aaron Judge, even though I know he could field too?
Yep, Aaron Judge can field, and Aaron Judge takes walks. And look, the most alluring thing about Mike Trout's game is that 460 on-base percentage. When you're talking about a guy who's on base almost half the time, there's such value in that because you don't score runs unless you're on base. And Mookie Betts is another guy who beat Mike Trout out for the most valuable player in the American League last year. Francisco Lindor plays shortstop and plays at an extremely high level. You know, Chris Bryant's another guy in that conversation, an elite third baseman. So we're talking about guys who bring not just value with their bats and their production, but with their positional play and those secondary skills like taking walks. That really impact a baseball game.
By the way, let me get back to that manager situation now that because I had a brain freeze and forgot that Social left is gone and you got Ausmus there. 4 years in Detroit, 2 winning seasons. I mean, I'm looking at his record right now, 314, 332. Why is he the manager of the Angels? How did you feel about that?
You know, they saw Brad Ausmus as a young guy who can communicate with players and can be the good face of an organization. He's a very handsome guy. I have no problem saying that. You know, everybody in baseball kind of has a man crush on Brad Ausmus.
Right.
But, you know, it doesn't matter how good looking you are unless you win baseball games. And they felt like he was the guy to lead them to that place. But they're in a division with a team like the Houston Astros that don't just have a loaded major league roster right now, but have a very good farm system, have won a World Series within the last 2 years, been to the playoffs, I think 3 out of 4 seasons. Like the Astros are good, and they're going to be good for a while. The Oakland A's won 97 games last year. They're returning a lot of that roster. Matt Chapman is maybe the most underrated player in baseball right now. Jesus Luzardo, a left-handed pitching prospect, looks like an ace at this point. They're going to be good. You know, the Texas Rangers, good farm system. They're on the come up as well. The Seattle Mariners are retooling at this point. It's not like the West is going to be an easy ride for the Los Angeles Angels. But if you're going to take that ride, Stephen A., I'd rather do it with Mike Trout than without.
I agree with you, but I expect them to be in last place again or pretty close to it. I certainly don't see them challenging Houston. Houston won 153 games, 103 games last year.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing about the American League, though. You got the Yankees, you got the Red Sox, you got the Astros. They are clearly the creme de la creme in the league. There are 2 other playoff spots, though, and whether it's the Tampa Bay Rays, the Oakland A's, or even potentially, the Minnesota Twins, maybe even the Los Angeles Angels. I mean, I think Cleveland's going to win the Central this year, but there aren't a whole lot of teams competing for those wild card spots. And while I agree with you that the Angels don't look like a playoff team right now, all it takes is a couple of moves at the trade deadline, and the American League field is wide enough open that they could sneak in one of those wild card spots.
Before I let you get on out of here for the day, I was talking about the Yankees and how some guys got to step up. I got to ask a question about a team like the Dodgers, for example. The Angels signed Mike Trout, but the Los Angeles Dodgers don't need to do anything like that. They just got off another World Series loss. However, they still haven't won a World Series since 1988. You still got Kershaw on the crew, but what are we to expect from them? What kind of moves they're going to make? They didn't sign Manny Machado. They didn't re-sign him or anything like that. I'm wondering, what are your expectations for them this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, they signed A.J. Pollock to a $55 million. And that $55 million deal was the most money that Andrew Friedman has spent on a free agent who is not his own in his time running a club. You know, he re-signed Justin Turner, re-signed Clayton Kershaw, re-signed Kenley Jansen. But the Dodgers pipeline is pretty stacked. They're getting Corey Seager back this year. That's like adding a superstar potentially, a guy who in his first couple of seasons was really, really good. That being said, it's a tough National League, man. And while I think they are the best team in the West, you look at the East. The Nationals are good. The Mets are good. The Phillies are good.
Stop right there, Jeff. Why should I believe the Mets are good? I mean, first of all, you got DeGrom. He ain't interested in negotiating once the season begins. Syndergaard can't stay healthy. Don't get me started on Matz or Wheeler, all right? Cespedes, we don't know when he's going to be back. We don't know what they're going to get from anybody right now. They brought Familia back. They got that kid, the closer, from Seattle. But I don't understand why everybody is saying the Mets are going to be good. Why are you saying that, sir?
I'm saying that because I believe in talent and I believe in depth. And they've got a lot of both of those things. You know, a guy like Jeff McNeil, a sneaky guy who I think is going to hit 300 this year. Robinson Cano really fortifies that lineup. I'm going to come back on in the middle of the season, Stephen A. We're going to have a conversation about the Mets, and you're going to have a big old plate of crow in front of you.
Why?
And I want you to eat it. I want you to gobble it down.
Why am I going to have crow on me? What do you think? You trying to tell me? What's your definition of me eating crow? Break that down for me, Jeff. What's it? What, that they're going to win 80 games? What is it? What is it? I mean, what does that mean I'm going to be eating crow? They're going to win 80, 85 games? Why should I expect anything from the New York Mets? Other than Don LaGreca complaining about them. Other than that, what do I have to worry about with the Mets?
I think the Mets are going to be in the playoff hunt this year. Does that count as crow?
Well, it depends. It would count as crow, Jeff.
Is your standard of crow higher, Stephen?
Hold on, wait a minute, Jeff. Wait a minute, Jeff.
Here's the thing, Stephen A. I'm a good cook. I will cook you a good plate of crow right now.
No. It's not going to work. I'm not going to need it. I'm not going to need it.
Well, I will make sure to cook it to a nice medium unless you're the guy who wants it well done. How do you like your crow, Stephen A?
Unless it tastes like lasagna, I'm not interested. But I will tell you this. Jeff Bass, and I will tell you this. If they're competing for a playoff spot at the beginning of September, that qualifies. It don't qualify if you're competing for a playoff spot in June. Who gives a damn about that?
Hey, that is totally reasonable, and you know what? I am on board with that. You got it, Stephen A.
You know, and by the way,
book me for September 1st.
Okay.
Book me for September 1st, and I will come on, and one of us will have a delicious meal that day, and I'm pretty sure it ain't gonna be me.
Let me tell you something right now. You can say that if you want to. You speaking with confidence about the New York Mets. That would make you a foreigner in this land, in New York City, because ain't nobody feeling that way about it. They got this kid. What is it? Brody Van Wagenen, whatever the hell his name is. They say he looks good just like Brad Ausmus. You said Brad Ausmus looked good. That don't mean he's going to win you games. They ain't going to win you games with the New York Mets. That's not going to get it done.
This is turning into a love fest, Stephen A.
I'm just telling you.
I like it.
All right. I mean, you can go ahead and get your crow ready. I'm not going to have to worry about it. I really am not. And sorry about that brain freeze with social.
On September 1st, I'm going to come to New York. I'm going to be in the studio with you. I'm going to rent an Airbnb that has a kitchen in New York City, and I'm going to cook you a plate.
All right. You do that. The Mets. Please, they ain't going to do anything, Jeff Passer. You ain't got to worry about that. How about staying healthy? I like DeGrom and Syndergaard. I don't like too much else on the New York Mets, but that's just me. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much, man. All the best to you.
All right, my friend. Take
it easy. The one and only Jeff Passan, Major League Baseball insider extraordinaire, right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 888-SAY, ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Damn, I'm glad he reminded me. I forgot all about social leaving. I forgot all about it. He's been here for 19 years. I forgot. Brad Ausmus. I remember when Social first walked away, and I was like, Ausmus, why him? Why him? What did he do in Detroit? What did he do? One good year, but that was it. I didn't understand it. That's probably why I forgot he was there. 888-SAY, ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We'll get back to your calls in more in a minute. By the way, do you have frequent heartburn? Like the kind where you have antacids stashed everywhere in case it pops up. You know what I mean. You keep some in your bag or your desk or your car or your nightstand. You have those chalky tablets ready for whenever and wherever heartburn strikes. Well, listen up. There's an easier way to deal with your heartburn. That's Prilosec OTC. Just one pill a day will last a full 24 hours with zero heartburn. So kick your antacid habit. It's possible with Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. I'll get into Ghetto Men on Odell Beckham Jr. and Eli Manning and then some in a minute. Don't touch that dial. It's Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Craving even more?
What we don't have the right to do is ignore a resume that's pretty damn close to impeccable in terms of his behavior and commitment to excellence. There's a lot of things. When my boy Champ calls up and he's critical of LeBron, the player, where you're on the court and you see certain things that you may not like about his game, there's nothing wrong with that. Even Champ could be a bit excessive, but there's still nothing wrong with it. When there's something wrong is when you ignore the way he takes care of his body, the way he's in peak condition, the way he's always ready to play, the way where he can walk out on the court and put in 35 minutes, 40 minutes without blinking. When you consider the level of physical excellence predicated off of physical commitment, not just to his craft, but to his conditioning, his body, and what have you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is some unparalleled stuff. Tell me somebody in the league who looks in better shape than LeBron James when LeBron James is healthy. We know the groin injury sidelined him Christmas Day and he wasn't the same. But who looks, other than Russell Westbrook maybe, and even that's debatable, the fact of the matter is when you look at LeBron, LeBron shows up every year ready to go. To sit up there and treat him like he doesn't care, see, that's where we're crossing the line. We really, really are crossing the line. We're reaching. And we're allowing headlines about him preceding his arrival to manipulate our coverage of him once he arrives. With all due respect to Walt Clyde Frazier, you don't even have a license to criticize the Knicks. You can't criticize your own team, but you can criticize LeBron. Like that? LeBron deserves criticism sometimes, mind you. Wanting to control the narrative and all that other stuff, but he didn't deserve that.
Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
The job today at Indeed.com/hire. Back to the phones we go. Before we get back to the phones, though, I want to transition to a different subject. Dave Gettleman, the general manager for the New York Giants, spoke up about trading Odell Beckham Jr. and keeping Eli Manning. Listen to what this man had to say.
This narrative that Eli's overpaid and can't play is a crock. I'm telling you. If you turn around and you take a look at what he's making right now and look around the league and see what quarterbacks are making, if you were in my shoes, you'd say, you know what, there really is not. The way he finished the season and what he's making, there really wasn't a decision to make. Odell is a tremendous talent, making him a valuable asset. With football being the ultimate team game, we turned that fact into 3 assets at the very least. Some have questioned why we signed Odell and then traded him. As I said publicly twice, we didn't sign him to trade him, but obviously things changed. And frankly, what changed is another team made an offer we couldn't refuse.
You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I'm not qualified the way other NFL aficionados are to tell you how ignorant Dave Gettleman sounds. But they did. They might have done it in less of a direct fashion, rather. But they definitely did, nevertheless. Adam Schefter came on this show last week and said there were several teams that said they had better offers on the table than what Dave Gettleman got. Adam Schefter questioned, why make the deal at this particular moment in time? Didn't even bring up the particulars of the deal. Said, who doesn't wait till right before the NFL draft to make those deals? Everywhere you turn, Fox Sports, ESPN, Pro Football Talk, the list goes on and on. No one applauded Dave Gettleman for making this deal. But he's the smartest man in the building, huh? Let's call it what it is. Dave Gettleman got his job as the general manager for the New York Giants because he had a relationship with Mr. Mara and Tish and the Giants brass. And you know what proof of that is? That he hired Pat Shermer, who had a 10-23 record as a head coach. What the hell did he do to get the head coach job for the New York Giants? One of the most storied franchises in the history of the NFL. What did he do? They got a Super Bowl championship with Eli Manning and Mario Manningham. They got a Super Bowl championship with Eli and Plexico Burress and Michael Strahan and the crew. They had a Super Bowl championship with Lawrence Taylor, with Jeff Hostetler as a quarterback. They had a Super Bowl championship with Phil Simms and Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and the crew. New England Patriots got 6 rings. Pittsburgh Steelers got 6 rings. Dallas Cowboys got 5 rings. How many got 4? This is one of the greatest franchises in the history of the National Football League. And this man, with that being an opening, went out and hired Pat Shermer. Pat Shermer. Now, had he been an offensive coordinator that you gave a first chance to, I can understand that. The man's record was 10-23, one game in Philadelphia. The other 3 seasons in Cleveland. Or 2 rather, whatever it was. Pat Shermer. You trade Odell Beckham Jr., but you keep Eli Manning. It cost you $17 million, essentially, to get rid of Odell Beckham Jr. You paying Eli Manning $17 million. $5 million roster bonus, $11.5 million in base salary, another $500,000 for working out. And this is what he says. And then guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Guess what the latest news you're hearing? You're hearing he might not even draft Dwayne Haskins if available. Giants might not even get a quarterback. They not only think Eli's got another year in him, they think Eli's got another 2 or 3 years in him. I would say something to Pat Shermer, but he's been through enough. And on a personal level, I can relate. So because of that, I'm going to be kind. I'm not talking about Dave Gettleman, rather. I'm sorry, I meant Dave Gettleman. I'm not talking about Dave Gettleman, the person. I'm talking about Dave Gettleman, the football man. I'm going to leave it alone now. I'm going to leave it alone. Joe, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A., thanks for taking my call. Huge fan, man. You cracked me up, the Giants. That kills me.
Go ahead, man.
Just real quick on Mike Trout. I agree with everything that's been said. I just wanted to add a couple fun facts to it.
Right.
You know, Machado, $300 million. Harper, $330 million. Why is Trout worth $100 million more than Bryce Harper? Because his career WAR is greater than Harper's and Machado's combined.
Stop right there. Stop right there. I acknowledged that at the beginning of the show. I mean, this is a guy whose WAR number is better than Ty Cobb and Mickey Mantle, Barry Bonds, everybody. We get that. What I'm saying, what I asked the question about is how do you quantify him being worth $100 million more? Because that statistic alone doesn't mean you're worth $100 million more than a Bryce Harper or Manny Machado. You see what I'm saying? I'm not debating that he's worth more. I'm saying, how do you come to the number that it's $100 million more? That's what I'm asking.
100%. And I wish I could speak intelligently to that. I think Jeff Passan did some great reporting there. I think when you look at the fact that you're tearing up the last 2 years of his current contract, you're giving him 10 for $365.
Yeah.
I think that right there makes it comparable when you look at what the market is willing to pay him. You're worth what the market's willing to pay you.
That's true.
And you know, I think reasonable minds can disagree about whether baseball is a team sport.
Hold it, but there's no disagreement here. I just wanted comprehension. You see what I'm saying? Like, for example, you have certain allocated down. When you hear the exorbitant numbers, right, that are given to NBA players, for example, okay? You know why you don't debate it? Because that's the max. So LeBron got $153 million because that was the max. Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry got $207 million because that was the max. You see my point? But in baseball, you can fluctuate. They can throw out any number they want. So how do you quantify? That's all I was asking.
100%. My last point, Steve, I think people may ask Mike Trout why you want to spend the rest of your years with the Angels. Let's go back and think about just real quickly that they took a chance on drafting him. They extended him before they needed to the first time. They're giving him this deal before they needed to the second time. They care about Mike Trout. When Manfred came out after the All-Star break and said, Mike Trout's great, but I wish he could market baseball better. The Angels were staunch in their defense of him and said he does it the right way. And a lot of people, including experts on your show, came out and said that's how you defend your player.
Absolutely,
So
you're absolutely right.
A lot of investment in Mike Trout, and I think when you're on pace, when you've been the best at every year of your age, and then you're on track to be the best who has ever done it.
You're right. You're right. I gotta go. I appreciate the call, but the other thing, you left out one other thing. It don't hurt to be living in Southern California. Anaheim is beautiful. It's a beautiful place to live. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back with your calls to close out the show in a minute. You know what never goes out of style? Surprising a friend or loved one will buy one, get one free multicolored roses, bouquets for $29.99 from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. 888-SAY-ESPN. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level, so make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Plus, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and your car insurance. Ethan, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, go ahead, Ethan.
Good afternoon, Stephen A. I've been dying to get through to you to discuss the issue that you talked about with the media, Mike Mayock getting the job in the NFL as a president and no experience in the league at all. And you wonder whether a person of color would be afforded an opportunity like that. Stephen A., you know, and we all know, you are to the NBA and basketball what Mike Mayock is to the NFL at least. And you've discussed somewhat, tongue-in-cheek that, how come you don't get that opportunity? If you came out right now and respectfully requested an interview for an open job in the NBA at the end of the season, if you don't get one interview, I think Colin Kaepernick's got a nice lawyer on speed dial for you. You've got to at least be considered as a candidate. Are you willing to just come out and say that you'd like at least the opportunity to discuss that with an NBA team?
No, because I'm having a ball doing what I'm doing with my career. I have more of a voice. It can make more of an impact doing what I'm doing. But I would tell you two positions I would consider it for, and it's no knock against anybody in their respective job positions. I'm just answering your question. If the New York Knicks or the Los Angeles Lakers came and asked me to run basketball operations, and I'm not saying anything about Steve Mills or Magic Johnson. They're both friends of mine. I love them both. But if they weren't in those positions, and those two franchises came calling for me to be president of basketball operations, even though it would probably pay me less than what I'm making now, would I strongly consider it? Yes, I would. I'm not a coach. That's not what I would want to do. But as a president of basketball operations and the kind of staff that I could assemble and the team that I could put together, in a front office as well as on the basketball court, I would consider those two jobs.
That's good to hear, but I just don't understand why you would limit it to two teams.
Because those are the only two franchises I would be interested in. Because I wouldn't do it for any other reason than me being a diehard basketball fan and loving those two franchises. I'm a native New Yorker, and I love L.A.
Hey, if the opportunity becomes available, I hope you get that opportunity, and go Mets.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. John, real quick, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah, Stephen A., I'm wondering about this Mike Trout contract. $430 million. It's $100 million over Manny Machado's. It's the biggest contract in sports history. Well, how do you justify that? I understand there's a $30 billion TV contract.
I got you. Let me answer the question because we got to get ready to get on out of here. I spent the entire show justifying it. his talent, what he brings to the table, the fact that he's only 26, that they're projecting he's going to be this elite for years to come, combined with the fact that you have the money to pay for it because it's 81 games plus the $3 billion television deal, and they could easily pay for it. Why not pay him? That makes sense to me. Holla at y'all in 22 hours. Until then, peace and love.
Hey, what's up? It's Will Kane. Coming up right after Stephen A. Smith. Join us on The Will Kane Show live on ESPN Radio, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News.